Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of A Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph. I am your co-host, Dorothy Odell. Dr. J is missing, so I assume she must be with a patient, with a client, and if she comes in, that's great. If not, well, then it will just be me and Mr. Mark tonight. But with that, we just want to give a shout out for those of you that this may be your first time joining us. I am a veteran ally. I started doing podcasting back about 4 years ago. My very first show was Unstoppable Overcomers, and I had the privilege of meeting a gentleman who was 28 years in the Air Force, and that's what started me on this journey as a veteran ally. And love the community, love the people, and can't get enough of them. So that's why I decided to have a third show called The Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph. And we usually have our co-host, Dr. Janelle Royster, who is also was an Air Force veteran. But tonight, we have the distinct pleasure of having Mark McCraw. Mark is a teacher, or he went from being a teacher to the Air Force, and now he's an author. But I don't want to say too much of a story. That's what he's here for. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I was actually in the military first, and then later on in life, I actually became a corrections officer and decided to get into nonprofit work for a little while. And then then after that, I went into education, starting out as a teacher aide, working my way up, and later on teaching second, fifth, and sixth grade. And then I went on to start working at junior college. I did some classes with basic English as a second language. Also did some work with people that were trying to get their U.S. citizenship, and also doing a lot really at the college with trying to learn success in college and life and skills that they had to have to go through college. So what a lot of college students need.
So what made you decide to join the Air Force?
I actually, when I was a junior, and I decided that I either wanted to go in the Navy or the Air Force, and I knew I wasn't that great of a swimmer, so I was like, well, I guess it's down to the Air Force. But I generally had a giant bag, paper bag full of all of these advertisements from around the globe. I think my counselor put me on every list that was out there from all over the different states and trades and all that stuff. And I think when I finally got ready to graduate, I brought that bag back to the counselor's office and said, here you go. Here's a bag of different stuff from different places. So.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you said you were in the military for 13 years?
Yes, around 13 years.
And were you ever deployed?
I didn't go overseas to like wartime or anything like that. I did support the war in one of the wars back during the time in the early 80s and stuff. So, but I did go to other bases overseas. I went to Okinawa, and I was in Korea for a while, and stateside bases and things like that. But I did go temporary duty into other countries and things of that nature.
That's awesome. What would you say your favorite part of being in the military would be?
Really going to new places and seeing new people, new countries, new cultures. That was the most fun. I really enjoyed it. So.
Right. Did you get to blow anything up?
No, I didn't do anything like that. No, I was actually in security police for the first part of my career, and then I went into logistics, and my job was to go ahead and go to the different places, the different bases we were going to, and get it set up for, all the personnel and the aircraft to come in. And then when they got ready to leave, we out-processed them and all the equipment and everything, and put them back on the plane, and we cleaned up the rest of the base that we were at. So that was our job. Then I got into the Air Force Reserve, and I was doing services, which we did everything from lodging to mortuary affairs to recreation. There was a whole bunch of different tasks that I had to learn, base laundry, things like that you need out in the field when you go deploy to different places.
Right. And what would you say, what made you decide to say, okay, enough's enough with the military and move on?
Really, I didn't want to get out. I think at the time they were drawing down the military, and all of that. So my rank was actually being, they were actually moving to a different rank. It was actually going to expire. So I went out on the early out program and then had some benefits for a little while. And then I just decided to join the Air Force Reserve, and actually got promoted when I got in the reserve. So I was happy about that because I was so close every year, like two or 3 points, you know.
Right. Oh, okay. So for civilians, so okay, this is the first time I've had how many shows. So
Mhm.
what is this scoring thing? I've never heard of that.
Well, they have a scoring, like you do some professional tests and things of that nature. But I was in a career field that didn't have the lower ranks, and so it was harder and harder to make rank. So I'd miss it by 1 or 2 points every year. So I'd have to wait another year to test. And if you got an evaluation, which I had good evaluations, it's just if you didn't have like a 9, which is really good, 8 is not bad. You would lose a lot of points, if you had an 8 versus a 9, which an 8 is not bad, out of a 9 scale, it's
Right.
not bad. So, or anything like that. But, it was like 2 months when I got in the reserve that I actually got promoted.
Wow, that was quick.
Hmm.
That was very quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I love that part though. I enjoyed it. I got to go to Germany and some other places too. So, got to go to Belize in Central America. So,
Would you say that any of your military experience would have been traumatic?
I think really the trauma part, not so much. I think really prior to that would be bullying. That has been a big problem. As you know, bullying is not something that you just goes away quickly.
Yeah.
It stays with you a long time, and I was being bullied a lot. Matter of fact, I write children's books, and I wrote a book called Brains Over Brawn, and Brains Over Brawn was actually a story very similar to what I dealt with bullying and moving from one place to another. I was actually in a southern state in Florida, moved to New Hampshire in a very small town, got bullied a lot because of my accent. And it wasn't just like one bully, it was multiple bullies. So I think that's something that stays with you throughout your life.
Mhm.
And and there's so much of that going on right now, from kindergarten all the way up. I see it all the time. I've seen it, at schools and things like that I've gone to. You see some bullying going on. You see it with adults on the road, and it's really sad. It's sad.
Yeah. And that is, and um, you and I don't even think talked about this in the pre-interview,
Hmm.
but my entire public school career, I was bullied. And so
Hmm.
I get that, right? And I didn't really realize how much it had affected me until about 10 years ago. Um, I was, I've been doing inner healing work, I would say, for the last 20 years. And I always try
Hmm.
to do, make myself better, improve myself. I don't worry about other people. I want to do better than I was the following day. And so with that though, I I was doing some of this healing work, and it kept coming up, and I'm like, man, I thought I dealt with that stuff long ago. But even in my late 30s, it was excuse me, something that was still lingering. So you're right, like it doesn't just go away overnight, that's for sure. But I have the
Hmm.
saying that hurt people. Not that it makes it right, but that's my thing of it. And you're right, both the my nephew had experienced bullying when he was in public school, and it surprises me because there's a zero tolerance in our
Hmm.
schools anyways, but yet it still manages to happen, so I don't understand that.
Yeah, it is. I didn't even tell my mom until I was an adult that I was actually being bullied. I used to come home every day. This was around like fifth grade, and I know it's a long time ago because I'm ancient, but but anyway, I would come home and I would just every day I just didn't want to go to school. I said I was sick, didn't feel well because majority of the school was chasing me down the hall and things of that nature, trying to beat me up, and then they would shoot a BB gun at me in town and stuff like that, stuff like that. And I never really expressed all of that over the years. And of course, that goes into adulthood, obviously goes in the military, and you're sensitive. It's like if somebody says something to you or gets on to you, because all that kind of plays into the background, you can't really tell, is that bullying or is they, what are they doing, that kind of thing. So emotionally, it's something I've dealt with all my life. And I try to go out to schools when I'm doing events and things like that with the schools, and try to share the message about theme related things, especially in the bullying arena.
Right. Right. Well, that is amazing because it's so needed. I know there we had an incident a couple of years ago. We went into the school for my stepson, and they said, they can't believe how rampant or rapid it is in the schools. No matter how much they try and do, they've had speakers in there and things like that. And I'm just like, wow, that is just insane. You would think. Because if I was being bullied 30 years ago and the kids are still being twits or whatever you want to call them now, that tells me that there's something that needs to be worked on within the school system.
Yeah, when you see a kindergartner bullying and you're like, oh my goodness, it's already starting at a young age. I actually was in a school not too long ago, years ago, and I actually had a student. It was like Grandparents' Day. Had a student actually, talk to another kid about his special needs, and the boy had to be carried into the cafeteria, and he was saying, "Baby, baby," just I'm like, wow, wow, this is just crazy. Of course, obviously a teacher got onto him and all of that. And I'm like, you know, just from an outside perspective and seeing those kind of things, um, they're picking it up from somewhere.
Hmm.
They're picking it up from media. They're picking it up from their environment or whatever. There's just so many places they can pick it up from their peers, and it's sad.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that because, well, social media is rampant now. I mean, it's bigger than it's ever been. I don't remember Facebook when I was a kid. And well, I think Sutton Burke's a lot younger than I am, anyways. But we never had those pressures. We had other pressures. Don't get me wrong, we had other pressures, but we didn't have social media to where it is now, and especially. There was a girl, Amanda, I forget her last name, but where she was cyberbullied and ended up taking her own life. And her mom speaks out about her journey and making sure that parents are aware of what's really happening. But I've read online just recently, and you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember where I read it. Probably the Google News that comes up. I was probably reading it on my computer, where it said that this 13-year-old, it was fishing, catfished. He was catfished, and then turned out that the guy the person had taken pictures of them, of this kid, and said that he was going to do something nasty with the pictures anyways, and then if he didn't give him money, then he would definitely release these, and don't tell your parents this and this. And the kid ended up killing himself. And come to find out, it was two men from Nigeria that were doing it. So they were caught, and I'm pretty sure they will stand trial for that, which is great. I mean, that shit needs to stop. We need to find these people. And I know somebody who was ex-military that is now involved in that in his retirement, behind the scenes, helping with that. So that's good. Taking his military experience and putting it so that they can catch these people that are doing that, because that's just disgusting.
Yeah, and the bullying is everywhere. I'm sure that they, in the military they have bullying too, and things like that. I've heard stories of different people being bullied and things like that, from people who have been in different branches that have been, have bullied another military member or whatever. So it's not just in the civilian world, but it's also in the military world, and that shouldn't happen either. So it's just we really got to do a better job in providing prevention, and trying to get kids to learn about what it's like and what is a bully. What are the characteristics of a bully. So in the book that I wrote, The Brains Over Brawn, I actually put in the back some resources from stopbullying.gov, and a lot of those parents can go in there and talk to those children about those particular characteristics of bullies.
Right. Yeah, that is great. So you talk about your one book, but I think don't you have more than one book out there?
I do.
I think you said something like 14, or am
I have,
I thinking
yeah, I have
14?
11. I have 11 right now, and then I have three anthologies. I'm in three anthologies right now, and then I have a fourth one. Hopefully, I'm going to be in January. I'm just waiting to get final approval on that. But it's a flash fiction anthology that's going to come out, and so I'm excited about that. And I'm working on a couple of books this year, possibly another military book at the end of the year to a possible publisher, and I've got two illustrators lined up for one book that I'm doing right now is a fourth and fifth grade book, and then I'm also doing a second grade book, which will probably be closer to the summertime. It'll start being worked on by the illustrator off of TikTok. So.
Oh wow, that that's pretty cool. So what are your 11 that you've already done? What are they about?
I have books that are about moving. I have books about what it's like to be a military dependent. I actually recently went to an event dealing with a month of the military child and gave out a bunch of books. So I enjoyed doing that. And that's part of what I am. The reason why I got into being an author. But I write books about theme related things, having to do with problems and how to deal with problems and strategies. And I think really the teachers really appreciate that when you can come to them with the theme related activities or theme related discussions. So I don't write a lot of book about dinosaurs and animals. A lot of people say, well, yeah, we know that sells, but that's not the reason why I became an author. Of course, you want to sell books, that's obvious, but that's not the reason why I got into writing. I had all these stories in my head, and uh, and I'm the kind of writer that when I get a story in my head, I write it down right away. I don't typically sit every day and write. So, but when I get these thoughts of, oh, that would make a great book, or a certain event, comes about. Like I had a lightning bug one time that attached to the back of my shirt one day at my son's house, and next thing you know, I wrote a poem about it and published it in an anthology. And I'm not really that great on poetry, so
Right.
so it's just these things that happen in life, these experiences that I want to write about, and that's called Nightlight, Nightlight. And it just talks about those fun times when you're catching lightning bugs when you were a kid. But yeah, I do a lot of those. But my third military book hopefully will be at the end of the year, beginning of next year. So I'm excited about that. I've had somebody actually on Facebook mention about maybe another military book. So we'll see how that comes about.
So when you say military, is it like a children's book, or is that
It's a children's book. Yeah,
oh,
it's children's books. The one I have right now that went to, was Did You Come Home for Lunch? That one actually went to the San Diego Festival of Books. It went to Miami Book Fair, and it was in Times Square in 2023 with some other authors. And then I wrote Living on a Military Base, which is about a boy who's telling another boy who's boy is military. He's a dependent, and he's telling the other children who are not military dependents what it's like to be living in a foreign country, and also what it's like to live on a military base.
oh,
And so but I've got another diverse military one that'll hopefully, I can get that out sometime at the end of the year. So.
that's awesome. So what made you decide to go from military to being an author and being a teacher? Like, what was it that you really wanted to teach?
Well, the funny thing is, when I was a teacher's aide, I started out probably in my 40s or so. I actually saw a lot of authors, and I stopped and talked to them. They came to our school, and I was asked them what it was like to be an author, and I was really enthusiastic about wanting to learn more about being an author. And but it's the funniest thing. It took me 15 years to write a book after that, but I'm happy that I started. I never thought I'd get past the first book, and it's been a blessing on that part of it. My first book was published through a publishing company, and one of the things they told me, they said, I couldn't believe you had that many books out in the first year. And so it's just like I was just dumping with all these stories in my brain, and
Mhm.
I've got others that I've been working on, and I'm collaborating with another author, and so I've got some other books that I'm going to put out. that are already pre-written already. So that's kind of what I do is I pre-write them and then I put them away and in folders. And then once I'm done with that one book, I just go to the next one and I just start revising that and revising it and go to an editor, format and illustrate it and then publish it. So it's a lengthy process, but it's very worthwhile.
Right. And so
Very rewarding.
where can people get your books?
They can find them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. They can find them on my website at www.markmccraw.com. And I'm on different places. I've got ebooks out there. I've got Kindles. Some are in Audibles. So it's just a lot of different methods that I use.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, what do you speak about normally?
Normally, well, when I go to different places, the schools, I'll speak about the book, like what's going on with the book. As a guest speaker, I usually go to different places and I'll talk about some of the, being an author, like what I call 5 Ps and purpose and passion and possibilities and things like that. So I basically go through all of these different methods of being an author, what it's like, what are the things I deal with, and one of the biggest things that I try to get across to other people that want to be authors is if you're not passionate about it, why do it? You got to have a passion and a purpose. Those are the two main things. So know why you want to be an author. And I have people for the last couple of years that come up to me all the time and they ask me, oh, I've got all these stories. I said, well, why don't you write them down? It's easier to publish now than it used to be with self-publishing. I'm not saying it's 100% easy, but I mean, there are steps to go through, but as far as, going the traditional route or the self-publishing is making it easier now to publish these books. So, and then I talked to them about, having possibilities, also having what I call like a legacy, giving them a legacy. So I've kind of come up with the mantra that literacy, learning, and legacy, those are the three main things that I focus on the most. So when I go to schools, I will talk to them and daycares. I will typically try to make sure I have literary elements in there. I'll try to make sure there's a theme. And then at the end, I'll have a conversation with them about it. So
That's awesome. That is so
I
great.
enjoy it. It's so much fun. It's rewarding to sit there and watch the kids and interact with them and all that. And it's just so funny. I think the youngest I've read to is 2 years old. And I think I actually sold a book to a parent who was just getting ready to have a baby pretty soon, and they were already ordering the book ahead of time. So I thought that was,
That's great.
yeah. So it was awesome that they did that. But yeah, it's rewarding. And I think that my goal in life is to make a difference in the lives of children, and that's the reason why I have friends that write novels. Like I change shoes, like they can write novels like 50,000, 30,000, stuff like that, just like that. But for me, I'm more in the children's era, so it's a little different.
Right, right. You're also currently a member of the Oklahoma Literacy Association of that, and the American Library Association, and Federation Incorporated as well. Like this list that goes on, you've got an impressive resume. If I was to have actually said all of it, we'd still be probably
Right.
probably
Right.
talking about that, right? But that is so awesome. So you're obviously well known within the literacy world and the publishing world. So that's great. And that's any when you write a book, I think to me that's the easy part because I wrote my first book and then I thought, okay, great, it's done. Like I had it done within 2 months, sent it off to the editor, it was complete. I think within 3 to 4 months time the book was finished, and I'm thinking, okay, now what, right? Because the hardest part is selling it, getting your name out there, getting for people to know who you are, what you talk about, what you speak about. So kudos to you. 11 plus two or three other anthologies, in working on more. So that's amazing. Like
Thank you. I really enjoy it. I think I try to stay connected to the literary world as much as I can. It's obviously hard because there's so many books out there, as you know.
Hmm.
They pump out millions and millions of books, and if you go to different bookstores, you can see them all over the place. So that's why I tell parents that some of my books aren't audible. So if you have a child that maybe their attention span's not as long, I usually hire children through their parents, and they read the books for me. And of course, I also read them online as well on YouTube on indie read alouds. I do that a lot, which is another way that they can find my books that I read online and stuff like that. So as far as the veteran groups, I stay pretty busy with that. With the American Legion and disabled vets, I stay busy with those. Um, I keep myself pretty busy with you know um, this world that I'm in, because I enjoy being a part of it. So.
That's awesome. Making impact everywhere you go. That sounds like.
Well, it's a lot of it is visibility. You were right. The marketing part is, if they don't know who you are, if you never get out and see people, you never contact people. And I've made a lot of contacts, and I think the most rewarding is when a child comes up to me at a table and says, "You see that book right there on the table? You read that book to me, back at XYZ elementary school, And I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome." But to me, that is, that's just it. Just really is makes me emotional. It's just
Right.
like it's awesome. But it's neat, and then it's neat to have a child come up and just out of the blue, had seen me at an event, and I was back at that same event later on, and they came back and said, "Hey, you know what? We really liked that book. It was Babbling Betty, I think was the name of it, using the letter B." And the child actually said, "I just wanted to come tell you I really liked your book." So that makes me feel good.
Right. That would make you feel good. That would make you feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, being an author is also trial and error, as you know. And you make mistakes. You learn by your mistakes. You find people that are other authors, and then sometimes you help them. And I'm ran into one that was, I think he was middle school. I think he's on his second book already, and so it's amazing when you see that. And Nikolai Piccoli was another one that my a 10-year-old and I wrote together, collaborated on. And so, and the purpose of that was to really, to get the author to a young author to kind of learn about how do I do a bio? How do I collaborate on a book? What are some of the things I like and want to see in the book? So there's a lot of collaboration about that, and the young man, he's like, I don't know how to deal with this fame. I'm not only an Oklahoma author, but I'm an international author, and I'm in 22 countries, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
and so, for a 10-year-old, that's a lot to take on, that, wherever they look, there you can find it. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. 10 years old and already an author, an international author at that.
Hmm.
Um, it just makes you, with the technology that the kids have nowadays, they could do so much more, instead of just, watching mindless television or those video games and things like that. Um, put it to good use, right? And I don't know about you, but I've seen so many ads where people are using Chat GPT to write books. Excuse me,
Yes.
whether that be adults or children. And I'm thinking though, because I use Chat GPT once in a while, and I'm thinking, okay, how in the world, because sometimes it messes it up completely. So, and it begins to, um, your emotions and things like that. But I don't know. I don't want to be portrayed by a robot. I want people to know me by, my inner workings of this mind, which could be scary some days too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I understand. There's just so many different things going on out there, in the world of AI and things of that nature. The goods and the bad. There's always good to it and there's bad to it. It's just depends on how you look at it. you know.
absolutely, Absolutely. I only brought that up because just before we got on here, I just happened to check my emails, and this guy that I know is a successful author, and he's teaching about how to use AI to write a book. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. You know, but I mean, to each his own. But it's just going to saturate the market with these books that are, I don't know. I guess I have a different theory. I would
Well,
rather hear somebody's inner works than.
well, I know, like when you go on Amazon stuff, they ask you if it's AI. You know, they didn't used to do that, but they do now.
Really.
And you have to say whether yes or no. And, I've heard stories, I don't know 100% true or not, where some authors, or at least that's what they're posting, whether it's true or not, I don't know, that they've actually, were honest and said yes and had it taken down. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the whole story. It's just kind of, you can't really tell what's true anymore sometimes. So um,
That's true.
somebody tells you something, it may not be true. So, and that's the internet is a great thing, a great tool. A lot of social media is a great tool, but it can also be on the wrong side of it too, and give you false information.
Yeah, that is true. It's funny because I asked it somebody who I know personally. I'm like, okay, you know, tell me everything you can about this person. Well, it's funny because you could tell it was grabbing information from their website, from their YouTube channel, everything, right? Just compiling this information. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, that's pretty cool because I have a pre-interview with somebody next Wednesday for one of my shows, and I'm like, okay, I don't know much about this person, so I went and used it that way, and it brought up everything that I needed to know about them. So, in that sense, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, I was on a genealogy site one time, and the AI was changing my grandmother to a grandfather, and the grandfather to a grandmother. It was just crazy. I was like, okay,
Wow.
yeah, it was an AI file. I'm like, okay, no. And it was changing my chart of, people on my
Mhm.
list of people, on the genealogy. And I was like, no, 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 that's not right. Had to go in there and change it because they were messing with it.
Right. Yeah. That's not good. That's not good. But it's funny you said about genealogy because I was trying to figure out. I had a grandparent just pass away recently, so I was trying to figure out when the other one had passed away.
Hmm.
So I couldn't remember what year it was. I knew it was in February. I just couldn't remember what year. So I was never able to find his obituary, but I found um, his deceased wife's obituary. And so in that obituary, it told me when he had passed. So, anyways, it was,
It's great. Some of the stuff you can find. I mean, I found my mom's TWA certificate, when she was like overseas coming back from Germany. I was like, wow, you're talking a long time ago. You're talking, longer than I've been alive, obviously, but,
mm,
you're talking about historical records that are out there. It's just amazing what the internet can do, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was weird. So it's almost like, um, yeah, it's just weird how you could use technology nowadays to get things from the past, blast from the past.
But when you're speaking about AI, I do worry about that when people are writing, because it does, can sound like a robot sometimes, and that's concerning too. I'd like to write it from my heart and go from there,
Mhm.
um, and then of course there's programs out there that you can use for editing and stuff like that. So sometimes even the editing can change a lot of stuff. So you got to be careful on what can't be changed.
It's funny you said that because Grammarly kind of ticks me off sometimes because I I'll put it how I want it and then it will tell me that it's incorrect. So sometimes I'll just go through it and accept what they do, but then I go back and read it and it's like it doesn't even make sense. So I
Hmm.
have to go back and put it the way I had it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, uh, number one, don't do everything at 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, while you're trying to get stuff done. Uh, because you're not
Then
really reading it. You're just going through it.
yeah, you might have a different story that you didn't expect. Might,
Yeah.
get published and you're like, that's not what I said, that's not the way I wanted it. But a lot of times, there's a lot of programs, but there's, I try to get editors out there that have editing experience and stuff like that, typically, or sometimes finding the editing softwares, finding a good one is good too. But because sometimes we don't see things. We see things in a tunnel. This is my book, and this is the way it looks. But you have somebody else look at it, and they say, "No, that doesn't sound right. You've changed from this point of view to, from first to second to third and back and forth." And so you have to have other eyes looking on it, because you get that tunnel vision.
100%. 100%. Yeah. After I wrote my book, I sent it to a couple of friends, and I'm like, at first I was worried because I didn't want anybody to see it till it was out. Right. Didn't even tell my parents about it until afterwards. I'm like, oh, by the way, I wrote a book and you're kind of in it, and this is what I said about you. Are you okay with that? So,
surprise,
yeah. surprise. But yeah. Well, I mean, as a family, we went through a lot. And so if we went through a lot, I'm sure other people went through a lot. And that's, to me, why I wanted to be an author, was so people can know, wait, you could go through hell and come out the other side. And there's people that have walked that journey with you. So don't feel alone in anything. Because when you're going through the chaos of life sometimes and through some hard stuff, it can be challenging, and you could feel like you're alone. So.
Yeah, and I think children need to see that there's a lot of things that are going on. You have to, when you're writing for children, you have to be careful. Obviously, you can't make it too complex, too hard for them to understand, or too difficult, or even sensitive topics. You've got to be very careful on how you word things, because there's just it's a difficult. Kids are going through a difficult time now. We went through difficult times, but now I think the kids are even going through more difficult times dealing with the problems that are going on in society. So, as an author, we can step into the literary side of it and give them the literary part that they need, but also giving them something to give them some substance of what you're writing about and what this character is going through. And then they can relate to it. You know what? I'm being bullied. I'm having the same thing happen that, this character is having in my life, or, we're actually having to move, and we do this all the time, and that kind of thing. And so I started writing for my children and grandchildren. I kind of worked my way down. Not every book is like that, but a majority of the books I started doing that, sharing the stories that I had as a child and mixing them in with stories that my grandchildren had, my parents had, just kind of all different stories. And I really think that people should get out and tell their stories.
Amen. That's why I started the production company, because everybody has a story and your story should be heard. Right. And like you said, not everybody is a reader. Sometimes they like video, audio. And that's exactly why I started this productions. So you're right. Everybody has a story, and we should all just share it.
Yeah, one thing that you don't know about me that I did not share on my bio is I was actually McGruff the crime dog. I was actually on the Burger King combo in Japan. It actually cracked some of the Japanese people that were at the festival that I was at. They like, do Americans dress up like this? I'm like, no, we don't dress up like Burger King. But we had one child was like one thing, and then another child, and I was like the hamburger, and somebody was the French fries, and somebody was the shake, and I've done that. I've done the tiger cub, and then I had a family member who was actually a character and stuff like that. So so it's a lot of fun doing stuff like that. Being in those little characters, and that was when I was a lot younger. Of course, I can't do that now, but I still remember those days. Playing different characters.
Right. Well, that is so awesome. So what else? What else is something nobody knows about you?
Let's see. What some people probably don't know about me is that I have been to Korea multiple times, not just when I was in Korea in 86 and 87, but I actually went back to Korea in 2017. I was invited by the Korean government and some other veterans organizations to go to Korea on a military tour. And then in 2021, I was in the first group of 10 people who served in Korea after the Korean War veterans, and got a chance to be invited by the Korean government and Korean veterans organizations and the Korea Defense Veterans Association, KDVA. I actually got invited by them and was selected in the first 10 that got to go. And so it was a great experience. It was a wonderful experience, and I enjoyed it. And so, so those are some of the things that I enjoy doing, getting involved in those kind of events. I'm also, getting in a lot of writing contests and things like that, and won some awards there, some local awards. But and then I'm actually next week, I think actually I'm going to a writing conference, and I'm going to see if I win in that writing contest. So it's Oklahoma Writers Federation is having their conference next weekend, so I'll be going to that.
That is so awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to it. Get to meet some of my friends, author friends, and things like that, and get to celebrate together and stuff like that, because it's been a little almost 4 years that I've been writing. So
Wow. Good for you. That's a lot of books in 4 years.
thank you. Yes, I was surprised that I didn't expect it to be that. So, but I I believe I've got being blessed. I believe God allowed me to be blessed in that avenue to be able to share stories and give back to the children. Recently, I gave out 121 books to military dependents. Um, during the month of the military child, we had an event at the zoo, and I was able to do that, and it was just such a blessing to see those kids coming up and celebrating them and clapping and just really appreciating their parents and all of that, and the children, and made them feel good too. And so it really was a blessing on both sides of the house.
Right. That is so awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, for sharing your journey here. It's been awesome getting to know
You're most
you.
welcome.
Is there anything else that you'd want our guests to know about anything about you or your books or your service or anything like that?
Well, it just, being able to follow me on Amazon is a big deal. Following me on my website, I blog on my website. I have video trailers on there. I have interviews that I've done, things of that nature. So I try to keep up with the blogs. And so they can find it pretty much on the same website, www.markmccraw.com/blog. And you can find all those interviews and continue to put news articles and things of that up there. I'm actually going to be in a magazine coming up in May. I'm waiting for that to actually come out, and so I'm excited about that, and some new things that are coming about this year, which I'm excited about. So great things to look forward to.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for being here.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks to our guests for joining us tonight. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Unstoppable Overcomers. Subscribe to our channel, share with your friends. And if you have an amazing story of either overcoming in life, business, or service, definitely reach out to us either on the YouTube or our website, Unstoppable Overcomers, or simply send me an email at grahamdorothy408@gmail.com. Thanks to everybody. And remember, same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.